So many of you already know Lysa Allman-Baldwin, but I thought it would be good to have a little bit of information to share with you just in case you don't know this side of Lysa's life before she comes up to speak this morning. So Lysa has been a freelance writer for over 20 years. She is a motivational speaker, a publisher and editor of a travel website called AmazingEscapades.com. Through the spoken and written word, her mission is to inspire others to create a life full of passion, authenticity, and purpose. I know Lysa is somebody who does her spiritual work. She really works on the things in her life that still need to be healed, and it's a wonderful thing to watch. So can't wait to hear what she's got to share with you. Please welcome Lysa Allman-Baldwin.
Good morning. Thank you for that introduction, Mike. I really appreciate it. So I want to start out with CSL's core value. CSL has 7 core values, and today's core value is spiritual growth. And their statement about spiritual growth is this: the law of life is a law of growth, and we are committed to personal growth and the growth of our community. Every man has an identity in spirit, and this idea will eternally unfold. It will never grow less, but will always be more of itself. So basically, that unfolding and that becoming more of itself is whatever we do to enhance our spiritual life, whether it's thinking a different way or behaving in a different way or taking a different look at our overall life. It's all spiritual growth. So I have a question for you. Have you ever noticed that the best fairy tales start with once upon a time? Well, I've got one for you. Once upon a time, a beautiful little girl was born, and she was a cutie. She had big brown eyes and slit back jet black hair, and she was smiling all the time. And even as a newborn, she seemed like she was just so excited to be here. Her mother tells stories about taking her out in the stroller when she was a toddler and strapping her down extra tight because she was afraid she was going to fall out, because she was always jumping up and down and waving and saying hi to everybody she encountered. Does that sound like anybody you know? And there was this vibrant light that oozed from every pore of that little girl's body. And as far as that little girl could tell, her very existence, whatever it was exciting and new. She was fed, and she was clothed, and she was held, and she was bathed, and people oohed and awed all over her, and life was simply wonderful. But as that little girl grew up, the messages, the external messages she started getting from others started to change. Those external messages were not quite as rosy, and just being herself became challenging. For some unknown reason, others had plenty to say. Now, whether you are a girl or you are a boy, some of these might sound familiar to you. You're not smart enough, or you're too smart for your own good. Are we losing power here? Your race or your sexual orientation is not acceptable. You're not black, Hispanic, gay, straight, whatever, enough. You're too tall, or you're too short. You're too fat, or you're too thin. You're too young, or you're too old. You don't make enough money. You make too much money. You should drive a different car. Wear these clothes. You don't live in the right neighborhood. You forgot where you came from. The list is endless and goes on and on and on. And these supposed guidelines for living can be heavy burdens to bear. And after many years of this, decades for some, we slowly go from being bright-eyed, wide little children full of promise to lost souls who think we can't do anything right without seeking the approval of others. We may even start to believe that our light is gone. But the thing is, none of those external stories are true. They've been imposed upon us by others who have forgotten their light and adopted by our ego our inner critic that sits on our shoulder and tells us those stories over and over and over. And after a while, those stories become the subconscious beliefs through which we filter all of our life experiences. But what if we pulled those stories out of the shadows and started operating them instead of allowing them to operate us? Lysa A. Romano is a life coach, a mentor, and a best-selling author who has dedicated her life to helping others find their authentic self. And if any of you ever use the Insight Timer meditation app, or there's also, you can access it online, you can hear her meditations there. And she has one that is called, "What If You Knew That You Were Enough?" And in it she asked, what if you knew that the beliefs rolling around in your subconscious mind were not yours? What if you knew that your mind, unfortunately, had been used against you? What if I told you that it was not your fault if you ever felt abandoned, unloved, discarded, or like you were bad? What if you knew it was your right to feel loved? What if you knew that your parents, your culture, your faith had a responsibility to rear children rooted in self-love? What if you knew you had the right to dream a different dream than those who raised you? What if you knew that you were never supposed to live in fear? What if you knew that when you looked around at other children, you could feel just as worthy as you felt they were? What if you knew that no matter what you wanted, that you could truly have it? And what if you knew that you even deserved it? What if I told you that things could be different and you could awaken? What if you knew that you were powerful and that within your mind was the key to manifesting a dream worth living? What if you knew that in spite of never feeling loved, that you came from love and you can love yourself? What if you knew that by learning to observe what is happening in the subconscious mind, you can detach from the dogma, the propaganda, the dream, and the illusions that the subconscious mind didn't know it was dreaming? And what if you knew that you could overcome your childhood programming? I say it's time for an extreme childhood makeover. And why do I say extreme childhood makeover? Because sometimes you need something drastic, something earth-shattering, something 180 to begin reframing those old stories and charting a new conscious path for the future. The book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, and I know a lot of you have stood up here, heard people stand up here and talk about this book. It's one of the best tools I know for helping you discover and examine your subconscious beliefs and positively shift your thinking. And one of the major points he makes, among many in the book, is what he calls a forgiveness centrifuge. And he explains it as kind of like what a juicer or a plasma machine does, where you put something in, it spins it around, and it separates the two parts. And the forgiveness centrifuge, he says, helps us separate the facts of what happened in our life from our interpretations of what happened. For example, as a child, your fact may have been that your father left your family, but your interpretation of that happening was that it was because of you, that you did something wrong or you should have done something differently, and you took his leaving to mean that you were wrong or bad. Your fact may have been that you had a career goal that other people said was beneath you, or girls or boys are not supposed to or can't do that. Your interpretation may have been my ideas are stupid, or I need to get approval of others before I take action on anything. Or maybe even, who am I to have a dream? And those false beliefs work the same way by what, by all accounts, would be a positive experience. I have a friend who told me that growing up, she felt that she was always loved and supported. And she was told she was smart and amazing and resourceful. Those were her facts. Her interpretation was, with all those accolades, there was no room for error. If she messed up, people would see she was a failure and that she didn't really have it all together. But once we are able to clearly see the differences between the facts in our life and those interpretations of those facts, we can make conscious choices guided by our higher selves about whether or not those stories, those interpretations, are serving us any longer. And we can begin to forgive ourselves and others and love the inner child that felt abandoned so long ago. We can begin to heal the subconscious mind. Several months ago, I spent some time with our dear Judy Whitcraft here, and Judy does tapping and matrix imprinting, which are basically methods to uncover the core triggers of what keep us stuck by going back to the beginning to support our younger selves. And in the course of Judy helping me get in touch with my little girl, she asked if I had a stuffed animal, suggesting that maybe holding one and talking to one might be a good way for me to get in touch with my little girl. And I said that I did, but in the back of my mind, I was already writing off that idea. I mean, what would it look like if someone my age was holding and talking to a stuffed animal? But you see how quick that is? The inner critic had already jumped on my shoulder, telling me a story about needing the approval of others. So despite that, I did think about it. And when I got home, I said to myself, well, Lysa, if you're saying that you want your life to change and you don't want to be stuck where you are because the pain is too great, why not give it a try? No one's going to see you, and maybe it might help. So I went to my kids' closet, and I got this. A friend had given this to me when my oldest son, Joseph, was just a few weeks old. And when Joseph was old enough to speak, he named it Bobo. And Bobo was a great daily companion until naturally Joseph grew older. And he went from being his everyday friend to up in the closet where he had lived for years. And that's kind of what we do with our childhood sometimes. Whether we say it was good or it was bad, we put it away, out of sight, like we don't need it anymore. So I took Bobo, cradled him, turned him into a girl, and I said, hello, little Lysa. And before I could finish those 3 little words, I started to cry. I realized I had never actually talked to my little girl. And with those big brown eyes staring back up at me, she seemed to be saying, well, hi yourself. I've been waiting for you. The first full conversation I had with little Lysa brought up a lot of tears and grief. I cried for all those years of believing that she was lost and that I somehow didn't know who I was. And I cried about taking so long to learn and understand that all those negative external messages had nothing to do with me. But I took them to mean that they had everything to do with me. Nevertheless, I kept at it, and soon those conversations started getting easier. And instead of returning to the closet, Bobo was now sitting on the top of my bed where we connected daily. And it wasn't long before I could look little Bobo, little Lysa, in the eyes and have very calm, loving, heart-connected conversations with her. Now I tell her things like, I'm here for you. All those critical things other people are saying about you, that's their stuff. I'll always be here to remind you of the truth. You are never alone in this life experience. And even when it seems like nobody else does, I've got your back. The conversations got so good that now little Lysa snuggles under the covers with me at night. And I tell her everything that happened in my day and how I'm feeling. I tell her about the challenges I encountered and how I resolved them and talk about my successes. And most and best of all, I tell little Lysa how excited I am that we have reconnected and that we will always have each other. Together, little Lysa and I are doing our own extreme childhood makeover. Now, don't get me wrong, even though little Lysa and I have reconnected and we're rewriting our life script, going away from those old stories that have been running the show in the background for far too long, there's still a lot of fear that comes up. And that's because change, from anything we've been doing or thinking for a long time, can be scary. But you know what they say fear is? False evidence appearing real. And they also say future events already ruined. But here are some things you can do starting today when the fear comes up to begin reframing those old stories and charting a new conscious path for the future. Step number 1, stop and take a deep breath. Stop and take a deep breath. That will automatically allow the space for perhaps something new to come in. Step number 2, thank the fear for getting your attention. No matter what it is at that point, it's trying to tell you something. Step number 3, examine the fear. Is it an imminent fear? Is there a fire? Is someone trying to physically harm you? Is there some other emergency? Because if there is, your body and your brain is automatically going to go into whatever mode it needs to get things taken care of. But if it's an old fear story coming up, or a future fear story, you need to recognize that it's the inner critic that is doing the talking. Step number 4, reframe the fear story. The advantage you have as your older, wiser, more heart-connected self is you have the hindsight to talk to your little girl or your little boy and tell them what is really going on. You can ask each other, what is the opposite of this fear story? How do we want to feel without the burden of this fear story? Or what if we choose not to believe this fear story? And step number 5, be gentle with yourself. You're changing negative patterns of thought that have been deeply rooted in your subconscious mind for years, and it takes time. Beating yourself up for having those negative thoughts is like going to the gym one time and expecting your body to change exactly the way you'd like it. It doesn't work that way. It takes time. We're just putting one story in that forgiveness centrifuge, shaking it up, and separating the facts of what happened in your life from your interpretations of what happened. And if you practice these small steps on a regular basis, I guarantee you will see and feel miraculous results. The funny thing that I've discovered after all these years of internal struggle and self-criticism and feelings of low self-worth is that on some level, all of that is trying to tell us that our little ones are still here, that their lights hadn't been extinguished at all. If they had, we would probably not struggle. We just walk around with all those layers of stories from other people just as easily as we do as our clothes on our back. Another reason how I know this to be true is what they teach here at CSL, and that is that our dreams, goals, and desires are God's dreams, goals, and desires for us, and we wouldn't have been given them without a way to fulfill them. We just need to keep reconnecting to that light, which will always show us the way and always tell us the truth. Recently, a friend gave me a new acronym for fear, and it is this: face everything and rise up. Face everything and rise up. So little Lysa and I now tell that inner critic, thank you for your input, but bless your little heart, we're going in a different direction now. We forgive you for believing that you were trying to keep us safe, but we got this. We're choosing to awaken to the power within to manifest the life of our desires. We're choosing to override those old beliefs and download new, healthier beliefs, beliefs that are in alignment with the truth of who we are and who we came here to be. So Joseph and William and Misha and Natasha and Kate and Mike and Robert and Charles and Maggie and Patricia and Ben and Mike. Your little girl or your little boy is waiting for you. Go get them. And so ends the lesson. Thank you. As part of our lesson today, we've given you a card. That's an affirmation that we want you to be able to take with you. You can use it anytime during the day, anytime that you need to be reminded of the truth. It's up on the wall and it's on your chair. Why don't we say it together? I have the power to reframe my childhood stories and to chart a new conscious path for the future. So this is the time in our spiritual practice where we just let it all go. We just stop. Let it all sink in. We want to just sit here and just enjoy the music and reconnect with that light of spirit that's within everyone in this room. So if you feel comfortable, just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let it out. And take another deep breath, and let it out. And just rest. We want you to just be your authentic self, whoever that is, whatever that is. No limitations, no confinement, no stories from others. Just be, and let the music take us inside.
You are the and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world.
We are the hearts, and we are the hands, and we are the voices of spirit on earth. That's who we are. That's who we came here to be. And we just live into that essence of that Spirit of God that was infused in every one of us. Neither of us has more or less than the other. And we rest in the knowledge that we have everything we need. We just need to keep reconnecting to that light of Spirit, knowing and loving who we are and what is, in a spirit of gratitude. And let's just sit with that in the silence and just be. And as we return to this time and place, we are grateful for having just a few moments to just be with ourselves, to just be our authentic little boys and little girls who just want to be accepted and loved for who they are. And we're grateful for this spiritual community that allows us to do just that. And for that we are grateful, and together we say, and so it is.